Hey YG Nation, it's Haroon here. We have Aaron Paquette, who is the counselor for Ward 4. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Good to meet you.
It's good to meet you. So we never had a chance to actually interview him to begin with because there was like 12 different people running, and you came out on top. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you very much.
I mean, our viewers probably don't know too much about you, or if they do, that's because they've been paying attention. But
Right.
if you're a YG Nation follower, let's hear a little bit about Aaron Paquette. Who are you, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm Aaron Paquette. I'm now a city councillor. Before that, my career was in the arts, so I'm an author, an award-winning best-selling author. I'm also an artist, and you've probably seen my work somewhere around town if you've been living in town. And I'm a dad. I've got 4 kids. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what got you to be involved in politics and start your
Right.
campaign and start running?
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I started paying attention to politics when I was pretty young. So that would be probably around my early 20s. I started really paying attention because I got a job with Raj Panu, who used to be the leader of the NDP in Alberta.
Oh.
And so I worked in his office and worked my way up. But one thing I noticed is that this is a man who, in his retirement, dedicated his life to public service. And he was tireless, he cared, he helped the people that he was representing. And it gave me an example of what politics really was about. You read on news or you see on Twitter or whatever that, people are always really upset and they feel that politicians are distant. What I learned is that it can be a totally different story. And so that got me interested, thinking, you know what, I'm going to keep paying attention to this, I'm going to stay involved. And so over the years, that's what I did, and I eventually made a run myself.
Cool. During your campaign, so I'm sure you made a lot of what your plan was, what your platform was.
Right.
So what are you planning to do during this term in office?
Right. So the message we got from people in Ward 4 is that they are excited to see that the city is growing. They love to see a thriving downtown. They're usually in support of most of the things that they see. Some of the things not so much, but what the message was from them loud and clear is, hey, we're paying our taxes too. We just want to be part of the growth. We want to be part of the excitement and energy. So we just want to make sure that our roads look good too, that we can actually get places when we need to, and that we have the same services and same programs that everyone else in the city enjoys. So, what people want isn't excessive, it's just, they just want their fair share. And I think that's what I'd like to fight for.
Awesome. So, in Ward 4 there was 12 candidates.
Yes.
Right. There was a ton of people who were running. So,
Yeah.
what made you stand out, and what do you think made you, in the end, the victor of the election?
You know what? You can attribute it to a lot of different things, but there's one major thing that made the difference. I was knocking on doors every day, all day. We never had a break, never had a day off, just knocking on doors every single day. It's the only way to get to know people, to get to know what their issues are, and to make that personal contact. That's it.
It's amazing. When did you start? Actually, when did you start your campaign? I'm just kind of curious.
Well, you know what? A lot of people remember that I actually ran federally in 2015 in the same area. And so I was knocking on doors there. I knocked on every single door in the entire area. And then when it came to run for the civic election, we just kind of picked up where we left off and kept going. And so in the space of 2 years, I knocked on almost every single door in the ward at least twice. Yeah. So we've been going for a couple of years, basically. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I guess it paid off.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the thing. If you're going to knock on that many doors and talk to that many people, A, you have to have a passion for it, obviously. And B, you have to be careful because something happens to you. What happens is that you start carrying all of those stories. You start carrying people's fears, their concerns, their burdens, their happiness, and then you have to do something about it, right? And so what the other candidates will have learned, I think, at this point, is that they're feeling like, I've got all of this information now, what do I do with it? So hopefully all the other candidates, they stay engaged in the city, they stay engaged in their community, and actually take everything that they learned and do something constructive with it. I'm really fortunate that I get to be really hands-on in that, but I think that everyone has a role to play in every community. Yeah.
Yeah, actually speaking of that exact thing, it's like we're trying to get young people to get involved with their communities and get involved, even just paying attention to politics and stuff like that. So, I mean, what are some suggestions you can give to the young people about how they can get involved?
Well, they can watch your show. They can go to the links and contacts that you provide, but also right here in City Hall, we've got youth council. In fact, every political party will have a youth council as well. And there's community leagues, and they can just get involved in any of those ways. The first thing is paying attention. The second is studying and researching so you have a voice. And the third is, and this is a weird one, but it is important. Sometimes what happens is the more you get involved, and the more information you see and the more things you see that maybe aren't right, the natural inclination is to get cynical, to start to just sort of, yeah, whatever, of course it's that way. That's a danger, because cynicism isn't wisdom, right? Cynicism is sort of the gateway to apathy. And so I would say watch out for cynicism. Anytime you see it, just ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What can I learn from this? And what action can I take to address that?
That's actually a really personal thing for me too, because I've definitely been in that position where I felt like, cynical about politics and what I could do. I mean, we started this and that was kind of like a jump into getting involved. So I actually it's cool to hear you say that, because that's actually, that's a pretty sweet line,
Yeah. I don't know if we saw that. Someone just clicked under the camera to get through.
So actually, the next thing I wanted to talk about is that you are actually half Cree, or sorry.
Okay, my father is Cree and Métis.
Okay.
So what's really fun is government forms. You have to pick one.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, which side of my family do I pick this time? But yeah, so through my grandmother, it's Cree and Métis that goes back to Red River, back to the family of Gabriel Dumont. And Gabriel Dumont was sort of like the right-hand man to Louis Riel, and he was one of the guys who actually developed guerrilla warfare. Because they were a really small group against the large Canadian army, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, so
that's a crazy story.
Yeah, it's really kind of fascinating. But luckily, we don't live in those times anymore. Yeah. But and then through my father's father, it's Cayuse, which is actually an indigenous group down in just across the border in the United States.
Okay, so I wanted to ask actually, because we've been talking about it all through the elections, that we want to see cultural diversity, we want to see gender diversity in city council, and we're very happy to see Indigenous people represented on council. And so I guess what I wanted to ask was how do you plan to bring those voices to city council in the future and going on?
Okay, so now we move into the realm of political reality, which is that if I am the voice that's advocating for those things, if I'm the front person, the risk is that the message gets lost in the messenger, if that makes sense. So my role to make sure that those voices are heard is to make sure that there are strong voices advocating here on city council and in government, and I'll be the voice behind them, basically advising and saying, listen, this is great, how do you feel about this, are we on the right track? I'll be sort of like that ballast that helps steer that. However, if I'm the frontline person, then what happens is that people start focusing on me rather than on the issue. And so we want to keep the focus on the issues. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's actually a very nuanced response. I'm glad to hear that. So I guess we should start wrapping up. If you have any last words to our viewers out on Yeg Nation, let them know.
Okay, well, if there's any last words, it's stand up. Stand up and speak and tell your story, because the people who change the world are the people who actually change the world. And if you're silent, if you're hiding behind a keyboard, if you're letting someone else take the burden, then it becomes their story. And usually when people are telling their story, they're not telling yours. So you've got to stand up and make sure your voice is heard. And that is your responsibility to yourself. It's also your responsibility to your community and to your nation.
Great, it's been a pleasure meeting you. Thanks for the interview, Aaron.
Thank you.
We'll see you later, Yeg Nation.